Hey everyone, it's LS, and this is the patch 8.22 notes rundown. This is the final patch before preseason, so I'm not expecting too much. And also, it should be noted that any of the changes that we do see inside of this patch might not even actually equate to much once we end up knowing what's actually going around, or what's going to happen to some of the champions coming into Season 9. So some of the buffs, nerfs, whatever we end up seeing here might not even matter. So keep that in mind when we're assessing what it means for certain things. Alright, let's move right into it. Akali, last hit assistance removed. W cooldown increased early, R damage decreased early, increased late. I really like that. General Cheater no longer has 4 last hit assistance. Okay, W Twilight Shroud 17 to 11 seconds, 21 to 11 seconds. That's really big. She doesn't get her old Twilight Shroud back until she has 3 points put into it, which means that she's essentially perma-nerfed until super late game. Her R perfect execution will come online. The buff will come online before the change to Twilight Shroud is actually able to be restored to. Or no, it won't. It's very close. So Akali getting hit like this, I think this is actually the fairest way to balance her. Again, Season 9 right around the corner. There are champions that are designed to counter her. She can be a risky first pick. She does feel very unfun to play against, but I do think that the thing that makes her unfun to play against is the Twilight Shroud. I think this is actually a very, very good and fair nerf. 15 damage at rank 1. It's not going to kill her. And then at rank 2, it's back to being the same. So her early game annoyance is basically getting hit a little bit, give you a little better of a time against her inside of laning phase. I think that's actually a really good change that Riot made. Fiora, small improvements to lunge targeting. Lunge still prioritizes R vitals, then P vitals, but now prioritizes an R affected target even without a vital to proc. Okay, nice little buff for Fiora. I was surprised that we didn't actually get to see her more in Worlds play or even just the meta leading up to everything. So expecting to maybe hopefully see Fiora next season, especially because Fiora is a tank killer, and if tanks end up getting better, like they traditionally do, at least at some point every single year, Fiora is a champion to look out for. Jhin bug fixing, Whisper, thematically, okay. Fixed a bug where Jhin was not getting an empowered haste off his 3rd Hail of Blades attack. Okay, this doesn't really matter that much. LeBlanc, W damage decreased, W distortion, 85 to 245 scaling, to 10 to 235. This isn't going to kill LeBlanc. Typically, she's overkilling her targets anyway. It's going to make it a little bit easier to trade against her in the early stages of the game. And obviously, you'll feel this mostly levels 1 through 5 is where it'll require her to have a little bit more setup to set up kill potential. But traditionally, after level 6, LeBlanc is mostly going to be overkilling you in most cases. So you have to factor in that even though it's only 10 damage, she uses this as her primary source of wave clear. She uses this as her primary source of trade timings and, you know, withering down your HP. So if she uses it multiple times throughout the duration of a lane, you probably end up getting an auto attack worth at least levels 1 through 5 worth of HP back, which is quite big for mages in mid lane. After level 6, it's not really going to matter all that much, so at that point it doesn't really do anything. Maokai, E cooldown decreased, damage increased early. While this change is useful all around, it especially helped Maokai clear the jungle. So maybe they're trying to funnel him back into jungle. Maokai sapling toss, 6 to 8% of the target's missing health to 7 to 8% of the target's missing health. So he ends up getting his rank 3 now at his rank 1. But the fact that it still caps out at 8%, the cooldown, it does end up shaving off 1 second, which I guess is sort of nice. This is not what Maokai is going to need to bring him back into the jungle. He is going to have a requirement of other changes going his way, including meta changes so that champions around him become favorable for him to fit into the meta, both for his own team comp and against opponents, and then obviously runes and itemization. Nunu and Willem, 80 increased, Q heal from champs increased, base attack damage 57 to 61. I'm not sure if this actually affects anything inside of his actual clears because he ends up killing it mostly using his Q, so I'm not really quite sure how much damage, like 40 to I don't know, 80 damage, depending on what the camp is, actually adds to his clear, especially if he's kiting and just using his Q off cooldown. So the thing that you feel this inside of is a gank where maybe it adds like a minion volley worth of damage. So another thing I guess that should be noted is that his base AD scaling, this is helpful for any of the Sheen items, so like Iceborne, but he doesn't itemize like that. Titanic, he doesn't itemize like that, I believe, either, so it doesn't really matter. Q consume 37.5 to 125 or 127.5 plus 0.3 ability power plus 5% bonus health to 60 to 204 plus 0.56 ability power plus 8% bonus health. What? That's a really, really big buff. You can't just give Nunu that much. That's a lot of healing. He uses his Q a lot. Heal versus non-champs, 200% base heal, 100. Oh, okay. So, all right, this is actually fine. This is fine then. This is all fine. It doesn't mean that Nunu is going to come back into the meta. He suffers from other problems. Change wasn't quite what I thought it was. Nonetheless, so the two changes to Maokai and Nunu in terms of jungle don't really affect anything. LeBlanc doesn't affect anything. It's just filler. Jhin, Fiora filler, and Akali is one of the best changes that they have actually made in recent patch because it's very fair. Pyke, Grey health no longer scales with max health, but scales harder off AD. W movement speed decreased, scales with the lethality instead of AD. E-stun scales with lethality instead of rank. R scales with lethality. So they are making it so that he can't itemize tanky or something. Movement speed 60 to 80% plus 4% per 100 bonus attack damage. 40% at all ranks plus 1.5% per lethality. So he gets 27% per lethality item. So if he ends up getting 2 lethality items, wait, he needs 3 lethality items, right? See, this is where you need to turn into Riot Freak, tune into Riot Freak's patch rundown. I can't do this off the top of my head. This is really weird. I don't know why they're going this way. But the mana cost going down to 50 doesn't really affect him all that much because he uses it situationally. He's not spamming it. He's not a jungler or anything. Maximum Grey health, 25%, plus 21% per 100 bonus attack damage, to 80 health plus 8 health per 1 bonus AD up to... Alright, you need to tune into Freak. E Undertow, yeah, we're just going to leave this one to Freak. Alright, check out Riot Freak's patch rundown. He'll go over all the math with you. Pyke's in a really bad spot. I think that making him go into lethality and all this stuff is very peculiar because especially he likes to go for the defensive itemization that allows him to basically be a super utility assassin support that deals physical damage. That's pretty much it. NA math, by the way. Trundle, Q damage increased previous... No, the reason I'm telling you to check out Freak here is because the way that he itemizes is very particular. And I don't like when Riot forces you to funnel into a certain way when traditionally the champion's been being played out a certain way. So that's pretty much it. Lethality ratio. Execute threshold and damage done if target isn't within the threshold increases by 1 point. Oh, that's pretty nice. 1.5 per... Okay, that's quite nice, I guess. That's a nice buff for the Duskblade and the Yumu's type of Thresh. Trundle, Q damage increased. So he's been getting buffed slowly throughout a few patches. I can't remember the exact buff that he received before, but Q Chomp base damage 20 to 60 scaling to 20 to 80 scaling. But obviously, since it's the first thing that you put points into, let's talk about where it really matters. It really starts mattering at level 5, because that's when you finally have 3 points into the Chomp, so you're getting an extra 10 damage, so maybe inside of a gank, you end up getting an extra 30 damage off. In the later stages, having that extra 20 damage is quite nice. Total attack damage ratio 0 to 0.4 scaling to 0.1 to 0.5 scaling. Trundle doesn't actually get that much total AD, but it is still nice subtle buff, so this is quite good. The problem with Trundle is that he's reliant on other champions being in the meta. He's an anti-tank champion. He was predominantly an answer to the tank meta in a way because he was a tank that could destroy tanks and make it so that his carries could just completely eviscerate certain champions, and it made it very difficult for the opponents to play, so that should be noted. Victor, Q discharge, base damage decreased later, R ratio increased, R damage decreased, ratio increased. Siphon, base power, 20 to 140 scaling to 20 to 120 scaling. So this is if you end up maxing Q first, you are going to lose out on, an auto attack within the first 3 levels. And then at level 3, you're going to lose out on basically 5+ auto attacks if you're playing top lane Victor. Discharge ratio 1.1 total attack damage, 0.5 ability power to 1.0 total attack damage, 0.55 ability power. So you need 400 AP before this starts being better than the old Siphon power. So that's actually, I guess, a nice buff to AP Victor. If you do something like the Hex Core with Hex Core, Rabadon's Death Cap, no CDR, Void Staff. Victor will end up dealing more damage, and then I guess if you go Rylai's and you have no CDR, then Victor will pack a punch like he did before, maybe? Our Chaos Storm, damage per tick, 150 to 350 to 130 to 290. Ratio per tick, 0.7 to 0.85. This is very similar to the above nerf. So Victor's threshold is looking at, like, you need 400 AP before AP Victor becomes superior to the current top lane Victor. These type of numbers aren't going to... Well, it'll decimate some of his matchups. This will make him significantly worse against Urgot, for instance. Aatrox or Aatrox will be able to fare a little bit better against him up in top lane. Some of the other champions that he's being used to predominantly bully right now will definitely stand a much higher chance against him. So, with that being said, obviously they're trying to funnel him back into AP, but he's going to need some love to either itemization or rune changes coming into Season 9. Runes, Time Warp Tonic, Potion and Biscuit region is front-loaded but no longer extended, no longer affects elixirs. Chugging, consuming a pot or biscuit grants 50% of its health and or mana. Restoration immediately prevents the consumable from using again until the effect ends, okay. Remove sipping, potions, biscuits, and elixirs no longer last 20% longer, you gain 5%. Oh, okay, only effect of a bottle service. Time Warp Tonic no longer affects elixirs. Okay. So this is actually... this is all fine. Yeah, this is completely fine. That's it? Oh man, upcoming skins and chromas. So let's take a look at this. Now the chromas I care about are the League Partnership Program chromas, where you, lucky viewers, can get some of the League Partnership Program chromas at my Twitch TV channel sometimes when I am streaming. I'm just throwing that out there, okay? So anyways, Program Nami... looks like a merfolk that... Alright, so I mean, Program Nami is probably an allegiance to Ravnica as a merfolk. Something totally went wrong with her. Program LeBlanc, let's take a look at her. Yeah, that is why we fear what's going to happen in the future with AI. And, okay. Praetorian Fiddlestick. This looks like something... This looks like Alien versus Predator, and they just sort of formed an allegiance, because why wouldn't you if, you know, North America existed, you know what I'm saying? Alright, let's see. Let's take a look at Graves. Oh, this is really cool. I'm getting a Darth Revan vibe. If you don't know who Darth Revan is, don't even talk to me. Alright, I'm getting a Darth Revan vibe here, although I don't know why he has this giant gun. Victorious Oriana. So, this is pretty nice. I'm really liking this. This looks very pretty. What's that World of Warcraft instance or whatever, raid or something? That's the vibe that I'm getting from the background. So I don't know. Oriana looks like she probably would greet you at the gates and let you in, like one of those really messed up people that just invites you to your death. So anyways, let's take a look again. The sea will remain strong on the side of the patch. All right, so let's just recap really quick. Victor is a buff to AP Victor post 400 AP, does affect his top lane matchups. Trundle, doesn't really matter that he's getting buffed gradually. The reason that Riot is probably reverting some of the nerfs that they gave to him previously is because the champions that he was designed to go up against are no longer present inside of the meta. Pike changes, check out Riot Freak. Nunu and Maokai, don't really care about them. LeBlanc change is fine, it's not going to remove her from mid lane. Jhin is fine. Fiora Lunge, fine, but again, reliance on the meta to a certain degree. Akali, one of the best changes that Riot's had in recent times. Yet again, however, patch 8.22 is a filler patch, and it should be noted that that should be how it's received as such. And when the preseason comes out, make sure to check out for a patch rundown. I'm hoping for massive changes that I can talk about very, very in-depth. Maybe if the changes are deep enough, I can try to invite some pro players on to talk about them. I will probably end up doing 2 videos for the preseason patch. One is the initial preseason patch rundown, and then I will do a follow-up video before season, or the follow-up patch 9.1, or is it 9.2, ends up coming out, and I'll talk about how the season is and what champions are going on and everything else. Lots of people are telling me to read LeBlanc's text. If you think this looks an oddly light nerf to LeBlanc, you're right. The Deceiver will remain on the strong side for patch 8.22. Next preseason changes will indirectly nerf her by giving opposing squishies a way to load into the game with significant amounts of magic resist spoilers. That's kind of nice. And that is it for the patch 8.22 notes rundown. Hope to see you guys join me next week, I think, is when preseason hits, or maybe it's in 2 weeks. I hope that it's just next week. I've heard a lot about people talking about whatever's on the PBE. I'm looking forward to reading about it. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to Season 9. So no more Resident Sleeper.